Well, hello again. This is Dr. Mark Everard, Dr. Redfin, and today I'm going to be talking about the lift method. Now, the lift method was very much mainstay for us that learned to fish in the 60s, and of course, Mr. Crabtree used the method for tench and so forth, and I use it fairly routinely for tench and roach in still waters and when the rivers stop flowing, at least the Bristol Avon, in the summer. And yet, a few years ago, Steve Lockett was commissioned to do a series on traditional techniques, including lift method, and really couldn't find anyone that was very familiar with it. So I ended up doing that feature with Steve. So, here it is. It's not a mystery, it's not difficult, and it is hugely successful in still or very, very slow moving water.
Now the standard lift method rig involves an overshotted float so that that weight can just sink the float, and the weight rests on the bottom with the bait wafting nearby. So when a fish picks up the bait, well, it doesn't really feel the weight because the float lifts it. As a fish lifts the float keels over and gradually it comes to the surface, and if you're lucky then the float tips over flat, although it can run away and do a range of other things. My own preferred method is actually to undershot the float. So in other words, so it just lifts the weight from the bottom, but then to set it a long way over depth, bring tension in so that it's the friction of the weight on the bottom that is cocking the float. And that way the line's at an oblique angle and the fish won't swim into it. Also, I like to use a big heavy swivel rather than a shot because that allows for a little bit more twist control. So the fish then lifts, it's much more sensitive, and the float turns and ideally lies flat. Here's my kit on the kitchen table with its size 12 hook whipped to a hook link, little swivel with that heavy shot. A little bit up the line there's another shot to stop the sliding float fouling with the end tackle, and then further up the line is a stop knot to fix it at the right depth. You can set this kit up at a fixed depth. In this case the waggler float stopped at a fixed depth by 2 shot either side of the eye, although I generally use rubber rig stops. But I do generally prefer to use it as a sliding float with the bait and the hook length on a short link to the swivel adding that bulk weight, a small shot up the line to stop the float fouling with the end rig, the float swiveling free on the line and stopped at the relevant depth by a stop knot. I like a 15-foot rod to give me good control in deeper water and a fight of a fish. This is my 15-foot Dr. Redfin float rod coupled with a basic centre pin, this one loaded with 4-pound line that enables me to fish the margins and different depths. So yes, this technique definitely works. Immediately before the coronavirus lockdown in March 2020, I went out to a local still water and had a very nice session catching a few roach. But who should then turn up but an 18-pound carp on a 2-pound bottom? And this demonstrates the potency of the technique, but also the importance of having a rod that is both strong but also forgiving.
So there we have it. Not exactly a lost art, because a number of people I know still use it, but certainly an art that is threatened, shall we say. But one that's worth learning because it is incredibly sensitive, and in the right still and slow moving water settings can be absolutely fantastic for your spring and summer fishing, for roach, for tench, for carp, you name it pretty much.